Hello everybody, Bruce McGonigal here. Horrible news out of British Columbia. Children are dying from overdose at a rate that is set to make 2025 a record-breaking year for such deaths. And the worst part is, we are being gaslit on just how bad this system has failed our children in BC. Let me explain, folks. In 2014, as you can see from the data, there were 3 children who died from overdose in British Columbia. Fast forward to a couple of years after Safe Supply rolled out in 2022, we had 34 children who died from unregulated drugs. We know as well from reports that came out that another 22% of children died on Safe Supply, meaning around 8 children. So technically in 2022, 42 children or more died from drug overdose. That is well over 1,000% increase in deaths among children. So ask yourself, why on earth would government run programs that they know is killing children and leading to record deaths and then do nothing about it except cover it up and gaslight us about those programs? The reality is, and this is very disgusting and insidious, is the fact that every child who dies that the government can revive and keep brain dead is worth potentially over $10 million in organ harvesting. Things from skin, eyes, heart, kidney, liver, bone marrow, your blood, everything. I mean, they could literally strip mine away parts of that child's body to give to really rich people from elsewhere, or political insiders and their kids. This is exactly what China does, right? You see here, $1 pill in British Columbia that kills a child can be worth that kind of money to the medical industry. So it's no surprise at all that when the government is signing contracts with Big Pharma for Safe Supply, when the government is signing contracts for naloxone, in huge numbers, especially the new naloxone, which is like $300-400 or whatever per shot, to counteract the effects of the super potent drugs that are being flooded onto our streets that look like Safe Supply, but are actually anywhere from 25 times to 100 times stronger and more lethal than Safe Supply drugs. So ask yourself, why on earth has the government decriminalized those lethal drugs, especially drugs not even designed for human consumption? And the answer is very clear. There is a political and financial benefit for the government to do this. The government has diverted billions of dollars from our healthcare system in British Columbia into harm reduction programs. Safe Supply alone, these pills, Safe Supply pills, hydromorphone, are 5 times stronger than morphine. So to flood our streets with these pills, with 22 million pills, okay, it cost us, the taxpayers, just to deliver those pills, $184 million. Meaning the people rolling out these programs are raking in huge salaries, big time, folks. They're profiteering off the misery. So if there is no overdose crisis, if there is no tainted drug supply program, the government doesn't have organs for its organ, programs for transplants. The government doesn't need injection sites. The government doesn't need naloxone. And the government definitely doesn't need injection sites that are destroying communities from within. So in other words, there is nothing but incentives for the government to allow people to flood our streets with specifically designed drugs to cause brain damage and death. And this is impacting children. So like I pointed out, in 2025, we now already have 16 children dead from unregulated drugs. And it can take years for the government to get the full statistical numbers for that. I believe I understand why. I believe that children are being given Safe Supply in foster care, and those children are dying, and the government is covering it up because the government is the guardian. So the government doesn't really have to tell itself anything that it doesn't already know. It's not accountable to parents. But there are parents out there that are waking up in the morning and they go down and they find their child dead or dying, and they don't know why. The government will say it's overdose. But does the government even bother to tell these people before the government starts asking for the organs and stuff like that, that it was government taxpayer-funded pills that killed the child? Of course not. The very first thing the government wants is that body to be revived brain dead and to be stored somewhere until those organs can be harvested and transposed and transplanted into other people. Likely NDP insiders, affluent people from around the world, you name it. It's the Chinese model. In China, the organ harvesting gig is far more profitable than the hard drug gig. So they're already fully aware of it, but they don't need drugs to kill people to get the organs. China just uses the Falun Gong, which are very healthy people that the government initially promoted, that the government decided, oh, you're too popular, so we're going to lock you up, and then we're going to take your healthy organs and give it to people who have like sclerosis of the liver or heart damage or anything else like that, or lung damage from smoking, right? This is what has happened now in British Columbia. Our government doesn't see these children dying as a bad thing. Our government sees these children dying as a cash cow. Our government sees these children dying as a way that they can roll out more pro-drug programs for children. And that is why in Nanaimo, we watched a taxpayer-funded Pride event. And I'm talking repeated levels of taxation that goes into these events. And they were promoting everything from the date rape drug to cocaine to heroin, you name it. And even telling children that are preteens that it's actually okay to have HIV. Our system is evil. We, the taxpayers, are the one paying for all of this. And that's what makes me so furious. Why on earth are British Columbians and Canadians as a whole not standing up against this? Why am I the one making videos constantly about this, saying, look, we're paying for the destruction of our next generation. We're paying for the death of men in BC. And that's another part of this report that came out. 77% of the people dying from overdose in 2025 are male. They're men. So what does that tell you, folks? It says that there's a direct attack against men in BC, and the government does not care if men are dying. And that's true. Once again, organ harvesting comes into play, but without those deaths, they cannot justify injection sites, safe supply, needle handouts, and everything else. Remember, folks, initially, injection site in BC was set up so that they could stop the spread of HIV. Now the government's promoting on our tax dollars that it's actually okay for kids to have HIV because Big Pharma will be there to provide them with injections or pills for the rest of their lives to manage their immune system. Folks, the girls, the women, are left alive. They're not being killed because they are profitable for sex trafficking, which is what's happening in a huge way in BC. We know it. We find girls in the news all the time that have been left in the tent city naked or beaten up or found in an alleyway somewhere, and it's their pimps, right? So they get these girls hooked on these super hard drugs, they keep them alive, maybe they throw them in a tent somewhere and guard it with other homeless people who profiteer or even exploit the poor girl. Or they throw her in a dungeon, basically, somebody's basement, and padlock her down there. Nobody hears her screams. They likely keep her drugged up and then let men come over and do whatever they want to these poor girls, and sometimes poor boys, right? That's why you see the overdose death rates of 18 and under being basically 50-50, because the government and the organized crime can exploit little boys for the pedos who want them and exploit little girls for the pedos who want them. But in the long term, the girls are the bigger cash cow because you could turn around and pimp them out endlessly, and the government's just going to turn a blind eye to it. The government does not care. Whereas the men are more valuable, dead for their organs, or dead just for statistics to make the excuse that we need more harm reduction, not less. I hope this has been informative for everybody. I know for me, I am personally sick to death of making these videos, but I will continue to make them as long as Canadians continue to cower away from this issue, which is exactly what is happening. I give huge shout out to the Conservative Party of BC and the Conservative Party of Canada for being the only political parties that have actually went to bat for children, for men, and for women in BC and for communities on this issue. We had an opportunity to get rid of the BC NDP. We had an opportunity to get rid of the federal Liberals. And yet parties like 1BC and the PPC, all those folks ever do is poison the well and do everything that they can to try and keep the very woke people in power that are hurting everybody. And that's why you don't see this as a big priority for the PPC or for 1BC, because they would rather race bait against First Nations and other garbage that means nothing and fixes nothing, but enables BC NDP and federal Liberals to be as toxic as they want, because they now know they have another party that is going to vote split on the right that will prevent people from being able to vote out this incredibly insane cartel known as the BC NDP, the lethal BC NDP. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.